So one of the things we haven't talked about yet in this whole reform chaos going on is what's been going on up in Aberdeen or Aberdeenshire, shall we say. Um, for those who don't know, that area in particular, very, very strong Tory support. Very strong Tory support indeed in that area. Um, but out of nowhere, out of seemingly nowhere, they claim, all these these Tory councillors, shall we say, suddenly became reform councillors in what generally seemed like an attempted coup to take over this council. Because if enough of them had flipped, from Tory to reform, then reform would have its first Scottish council. So interesting things certainly going on in that area, and I haven't had chance to talk about it too much because it seems that there's more going on that at least meets the eye. And I don't know how, I think I've mentioned this before. I have a friend who is up there who might be able to shed maybe some information, some more light on what's going on there. I'll have to try to see if I can coax him on to have a chat sometime. But it would be an interesting chat indeed to have. But there's more going on than I think at first meets the eye, shall we say here. Oh, bless me. So, with that sneeze, and of course me blessed, thank you very much for all those people for again joining me today. Like I say, click on the like, click on the share button. If you're new, hit the subscribe button, and of course, links down below. Oh, bless me again. For the Patreon page, the Buy Me a Coffee link, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So let's crack on then into this, because this honestly seems what's going on up here an absolute mess of a situation. And it all started with pretty much a mass defection of Tory councillors to become Reform UK councillors. And I have suspected, and we'll do probably one maybe tomorrow about another area I think maybe could bring just as much chaos to that local council as well. So, but we'll talk about more of that tomorrow. But anyway, on to, of course, the Press and Journal. With Aberdeenshire's now reform rebel now forced out of council, coalition in leadership shake-up. So this is what happened. They came in here, flipped over, had to form this fragile coalition, this like Tory reform coalition, and now, according to this reform guy, Tory HQ tried to force him out. How true this all is, I don't know. But this just adds to the entire strange situation that is being going on in Aberdeen. And I haven't talked about it because it's just such a weird situation that is going on, and there appears to be a lot more going on, maybe behind the scenes, more than at least we know at the moment. So who knows? But if you are up and then you can shed any more light on it, I would love to hear what you've got to say on this. So an Aberdeenshire council who joined Reform claims the National Tory Party stepped in to remove him from the locals' authority ruling coalition to pave the way for a shake-up. John Cox's claims comes after he and multiple other councillors signed up to Nigel Farage's party, putting now the administration in crisis. Mr. Cox has been a thorn in the side of the Tory group for a while and kept his place on the ruling group despite now being a very bitter rival. The Tories were already now reeling from the recent exit of former local leader Gillian Owen, who attracted the interest of the Lib Dems, who now eyed a beefed-up leadership post. Mr. Cox, who now faces expulsion from the administration because he's a member now of a different political party, the veteran, who is also a former SNP politician, alleges now that the order came from the top. Again, a former SNP politician going Tory. But anyway, that's just me poking the bear. Anyway, the alleged now order comes from the top. Mr. Cox said that he was given a, quote, ultimatum now to quit his membership of Reform or leave the coalition. So it became very clear that local administration is now being directed by the Conservative HQ, he said. That is unacceptable in any council, let alone now on facing massive budgetary pressures. Really, given the fact that he's joined Reform, given the fact that we know there is an office in London, in Reform's HQ's office, that is basically dictated to or dedicated to running all those councils that Farage has control of. He basically has full control of what they say. We saw an example of that not too long ago, where the guy in Leicestershire went, maybe we'll not have those local Doge units in our council. To which Reform HQ came in and saying, "Oh no, you will have that." So. So he said this is unacceptable to any councillor. I wonder if he find it unacceptable from his Reform standpoint, let alone now on facing massive budgetary pressures. The Banff and District Councillor claimed, I don't know if that's how I say it, Banff and District Councillor claimed that the Tories are now, of course, focused on the John Cox problem than actually running the local authority. He wanted to add, this is not leadership, this is political self-interest. The P&J understand that the Scottish Conservatives have now been making a lot of efforts to get rid of Mr. Cox from administration for months. We are also aware of other senior party figures who have been frustrated at the local Tory group's management of the Aberdeenshire and have made their discontent clear. Mr. Cox's exit from the administration is expected now to be formalised soon. It is supported, of course, by the Lib Dems and other independents on the council. So the P&J also understands that Lib Dem chief Annie Sterling would also be expected now to serve alongside the new Tory boss, Stuart Adams, in a very co-leadership role. Mr. Adams, who replaces Owens after she was now forced to quit for now branding her Conservative colleagues effing classic Scottish swear there. Refreshed this agreement between the two parties would ensure that no, of course, independent councillors could serve in this coalition if they hold political party membership. A Tory spokesperson branded Mr. Cox an egomaniac now for his claims. John Cox fails to see the contradiction now in setting out a very lengthy essay in internal politics while accusing us now of focusing on internal politics, the spokesperson said. And then he says it's, quote, not about him, while he repeatedly speaks remindedly now of the Joe Cox problem, a phrase that he has himself invented all on his own. We'll now focus on delivering better services for local people, not many, with many words of an egomaniac who now speaks about himself in the third person. So, again, what is really going on here? Honestly, the situation just seems to be getting more and more crazy in that area. Another Tory supporters obviously claimed that the party HQ had very little to do with Mr. Cox being sacked out of the coalition, but were in full support of the move. They emphasised, of course, his status as an independent councillor was seen now as incompatible with his membership of Reform. It is understood that Mr. Cox is now seen as a very decisive figure within the administration. He does retain some allies within the Lib Dem group, saying that John is controversial with a big C, said one council insider. A Reform UK spokesman said, "We wish John well as an independent councillor, and our group, of course, look forward to working with him on a case-by-case basis in the best interest of Aberdeen." Oh, I'm sorry, Aberdeenshire. Honestly, a wild situation up there that just keeps on getting stranger and stranger and stranger. And I just felt at this moment that I had to sort of talk about it because it just seems to be going from one extreme to the other. Obviously, we had that little coup where a lot of them sort of suddenly joined. And as I've said before, I think in the not too distant future, we will see an increasing pace of Tory councillors jump ship to Reform because they think, and especially by 2026, that that will be their best chances for survival. Like I say, it's purely politically motivated decisions. there was a reform, well, not a reform councillor, a Labour councillor that suddenly became independent, but was saying basically all the same stuff that reform was saying, and it seemed to me he was more like an open audition to join reform, by the sounds of it. So, as always, let me know what you think about this, because honestly, it just seems to be getting an even crazier situation on this front. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.